Putting the human back into technology with Gethin Ellis and Mark Williams. Welcome to the 6th episode of the Fit podcast. Here at gethinellis.com, whilst we know physical fitness is essential, our mental health is vital too, and our Fit podcast is all about putting the human back into technology. One of the things we can probably all agree on is the last year has been unprecedented. So we wanted to seek out the views of technology leaders, business owners, consultants and many others from a range of different businesses and organisations to discuss with them the impacts of the last year on their business, on their humans and on their technology, and how they see the future unfolding. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to episode 6, where we speak to Foundation SPs Simon Grosse and Liz Rogers. Welcome everybody to the 6th edition of the Putting the Human Back into Technology podcast. And this week, Mark and I are being joined by two special guests from Foundation SP. We have Simon Grosse and Liz Rogers. Welcome both.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. Hi, good to see everybody.
Thank you for joining us. Now, I've just got to get my questions because I'm on the wrong page here, but that's all right. So I'll kick off with the first question, if that's all right, guys. I'll pick Simon first. No particular order. I'll just go to Simon first. Just tell us a little bit about your business, job, and role. What is it you do, Simon? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, morning, everybody. I'm Simon Grosse. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Foundation SP, but it's a bit of a mouthful, so we'll just call ourselves FSP for this. And we're approaching 100-person business, largely based out of the UK, but also presence in Spain. And we're in that kind of digital transformation, digital services space. So we work in Microsoft platforms with 365, Microsoft Cloud Native development, bit of data and AI, bit of cyber. That's our business. We've been going for coming up 9 years now.
Wow, cool. And I guess then I'll bring Liz in. For those that don't know this, and I'm sure there's plenty that do. I've known Liz for a very long time. I've not only met Simon this morning. So Liz, can you answer that same question for me? Just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for FSP, if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks, Gethin. So my name is Liz Rogers, and I am the change lead at FSP. I've been with the organisation for 3 years now, 3 years this month, and I lead the change team. So we are the team that do all those people-focused activities for a project or for a delivery. So, the change journey implementation, the comms strategy, comms planning, comms collateral creation, adoption and engagement activities. So really helping organisations drive that change and adoption of a new product or service within their business. So my background is actually HR and organisation development. I do not have a tech background, so don't ask me any tech questions, Gethin, because I can't answer them. But obviously with a HR and OD background, I really understand that people space. Employee engagement.
It's pretty interesting, and that was one of the reasons why I was keen to get you on, because we're putting the human back into technology, and it seemed like what FSP were doing in engaging yourself as that sort of change lead, they were tackling the hard part of change, right, which is predominantly tech's easy, but getting the people to change is the difficult bit. So I was quite intrigued at how you do it, and that's kind of the approach. Well, that's kind of the approach we take, not to go down that route, but it was really interesting to see how other organisations were approaching delivering on that change. So that's cool. Then I'll hand over to Mark for question 2. Thank you, guys.
I mean, clearly you guys are you're a decent sized business in your own right, and you're near enough 100 people, as Simon was saying. But obviously what you do is you provide help and solutions, don't you, to your clients. So maybe this question is aimed at both of those scenarios, your own business and those that you're helping. It's a simple question, really, but maybe I'll go to Liz first on this one. How has the last year or so, or whatever it is, that we've been troubled by these troubles, impacted the business that you're in?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I think we transitioned really, really well as an organisation. So if I focus on the internal stuff first, we went from being in the office on the 23rd of March being out of the office on the 24th of March, I would say fairly seamlessly. We've got a hybrid model of working anyway that we've perpetuated for years. So that's obviously helped. So I would do on average 3 days a week from home anyway, and be in the office on a fairly infrequent basis and be on site with clients more regularly. So I think we transitioned quite well into that kind of new way of working. But I think, the challenge has been for all organisations, not just FSP, maintaining employee engagement, maintaining our employee well-being, so making sure all the team are okay. And the leadership team in FSP have worked really, really hard to make sure we've been able to sustain that. So lots of conversations, lots of communications, lots of social type events during the day and after work activities. And that's really meant that we can really maintain that sense of team. So we work in a very kind of matrix way anyway when we deliver projects into a customer, but we've worked, I would say, pretty seamlessly and in terms of the way that we've delivered our services in and maintained that with our client base. Interestingly, at the start of the pandemic, I think from an employee point of view, I was thinking, okay, what's this gonna look like? What's this new environment going to feel like? From a customer point of view, so what are our customers going to experience going forward? And I think one of the things for me is, and I get, Simon can talk about this as well, probably better than me. I kind of saw two different things happening. There were those who were kind of rabbit in the headlights. What are we going to do? A bit of panic, lots of worry across everybody's environments. But that then they kind of went, okay, take the breath, stop. We can do this. We can deliver this. Some customers are like, well, we can't run our business. We're just going to have to shut everything down, do the bare minimum, just keep going and get through this period of time. And then there were other customers who we thought, retail, for example, who you think, this is real pressure, and they've absolutely thrived. They've used the opportunity to really drive actually digital transformation and IT projects in their businesses and done incredibly well through this. We've had a lot of demand in the past sort of 15 months or so. We've probably had the busiest year we've ever had, wow, which is great. Really, really great, and also really, really demanding. But yeah, there's obviously lots of conversations going on with our customers at the start of the pandemic about what does this mean to you? What kind of support can we give you? There were customers who we ramped up very quickly for, where we were piloting teams, for example, and they were moving into that sort of space anyway, where suddenly it became less of a pilot. We are delivering now at pace. And it was properly full on for them and for us. So that change piece then obviously becomes incredibly important. I'll shut up now.
Yeah, us people from South Wales, we can talk a little bit, Liz.
Oh yeah.
I'll definitely shut up. Simon, please have a go.
Yeah, sure. Well, I suppose the first thing that I would observe in the 15 months, I mean, firstly, it's been a really humbling year or so, hasn't it? And although I'll start with the positive in that, I think we've come together as a business. We've looked after each other. We've been in the boat together, and we've extended that in the way that we behave with our customers. So I'm really proud of what we've done on that front. And the business, as Liz has said, we had our biggest ever year. But at the same time, that almost hasn't felt like the most important thing during the last 15 months. It's felt that, actually, I suppose if you rewind, as Liz just did, back to whenever it was, March 23rd, 2020, we were in the position where we were fearing for our business. We were fearing because no one knew what the impact would be in the economy. No one knew, would we still be here? What would be happening with digital? We just didn't know that. And so we did some fairly rapid assessments, and we thought, look, worst case could be we lose 20% of our business overnight. And the reason for that were, we've got clients across different sectors, but clients in retail, clients in construction, clients in transport, you're thinking this is not good news. And sadly for them, in a lot of cases, it wasn't good news. And albeit some staff might have been okay in furlough, there was lots of people that clearly haven't been okay. And so whenever I talk about our business having, been thriving and doing really well, it's sort of tempered to some degree with it has been a really challenging year for lots of businesses and individuals. And so, but that said, we have done particularly well, and we have had to reinvent on lots of things. And as Liz said, it's been an opportunity as much as it has been setbacks. The things that I most worry about at the moment is the long tail that's gone with people's well-being, and mental health, and just generally the impact of not just not seeing family and friends and that isolation piece, but also the, almost becoming institutionalized and routined by remote work and sitting on Teams, sitting on Zoom, and to somehow for that to be normal now.
Yeah.
And I really don't think it is, and I really think we need a better balance and a better blend, and hopefully we're getting that, of course, with the successful vaccine rollouts. But yeah, I suppose part of my answer is, yeah, great for the business, and yes, we've got through it, and yes, we've pivoted and supported our customers in doing it. But I would equally be concerned about the impact of people and how they are and how they feel throughout. But I do think we've come together particularly well, which I'm really happy about.
I think that's a really interesting segue into Gethin's going to ask the next question. And so, because we were talking offline about people and how they fit into your business, and the announcement from Apple the other day about what they're doing with their offices, etc. But let's segue into that question, shall we?
Well, you may as well ask it now, Mark. I was just about to, and you just got in before me. So after you, my old friend.
We're not particularly prepped for these things. People, then, and we've looked on. We've seen how proud you are, and rightly so, of the awards that you've got for the various people engagement stuff, and you've both talked a lot about that, and it's clear that they're left, right, and centre of the model. But maybe expand a little bit more on where you were just. Maybe we'll go to Simon. Just expand a little bit more on that well-being and and that mental stress, and what is the balance, and how you think you're going to go about getting that right balance, I suppose, with people in your model and for your clients.
Yeah, of course. We're a values-led organisation, and when we really got clarity and committed to our values back in 2014 at an early stage, we've never looked back. And our values are not just things that appear on the wall or on the website. These are things that we actively live by, and living those values of family, of thinking about the win-win around success and being passionate about what we do is ultimately transmitting through having people's back, leading with empathy, understanding that everybody's every single person that comes to work has got a family, and I think that's a really important factor. So how do people fit into our organisation? Well, they are our organisation, and the culture is really our strategy for sustainable growth. And they are, of course, being a consultancy organisation, the people are our lifeblood. They're the heart and soul of the organisation. And the bit that I was kind of alluding to around the how do we look out for people is that I believe, and we're not perfect, by the way, despite the winning Great Place to Work and these different accolades that kindly you've referenced there. We're far from perfect, and we don't get it right every time. And I think, but what we have managed to do is to make a large part of life at FSP being self-managing and systemic within the employees that are part of it. So it is just as much the job of every single person that's part of this organisation to lead and live and breathe that culture and almost pay it forward in the same way that I would. I don't know if you, Liz, would kind of agree with that or add to that in any way.
Yeah, I think so. I've had the opportunity to work in lots of organisations in lots of different sectors, and I say this all the time to people joining FSP when we're interviewing, etc. Is I've never worked anywhere where the business is so aligned to its values. So they really drive what we do and how we work. And you know, they're thoughtful, they are meaningful. And whilst Simon sort of says, because I can say this sort of from a you know, my perspective, I absolutely agree. We're not perfect. There's lots of things we could do, but we try really hard. And we're always learning, and we are always, you know, engaging and talking about what it is to work at FSP, you know, ensuring that everybody's treated with, you know, dignity and respect. People are really at the front and centre of the organisation, and that's what drives the business, I think. So yeah, you know, we are. It's great that we've been recognised for what we do and how we do it, and it really means we can deliver the services that we deliver as well. You know, I've worked in HR long enough to know, and I've talked to enough exec teams and within the organisations that I work, that if you get the people stuff right, the rest of it will happen. So you know, your ability to drive productivity, to drive efficiency, the discretionary effort that people give is amazing. People don't come to work to do a rubbish job. People come to work to be able to thrive and experience, you know, opportunities to develop and that kind of stuff. And when you create that sort of environment, the power of that is just amazing. You know, amazing.
Just one more question on this, if I may, and I will let Geth have a go. I mean, you've got 100 people in your business, near enough, and you know, you'll have people in the so-called back office, you know, finance and so on. I know you do managed services, so you'll have people answering the telephones and doing chat and stuff for your clients. You've got people like yourself, Liz, that are hybrid models out with clients, and you'll have techies, blah blah blah. Have different types of people within your organisation. I'm not trying to be too, you know, categorized with that, coped differently, or some cope better or some cope worse with you know, with the changes that have gone on?
That's a really interesting question.
In the early days, and I think the bit that we were trying to avoid in the classification was the classic sort of introvert extrovert thing. Yeah. But I'll go there just for a minute. But
well, everyone's an ambivert, surely, Simon. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot more. Probably a lot more nuanced than that, but yeah. I think in the beginning, you know, we probably have two. You know, we've got lots of consultants and lots of technical people as well as change people. But broadly, you know, I would say we've got quite a lot of introverts in our organisation, particularly on the technical side. And you know, a lot of our staff thrived in the beginning in COVID and enjoyed the extra balance, and were quite comfortable with the remote working. I think that's shifted now. I think people are a bit done with it. Extroverts like myself have probably not enjoyed any of it because generally I don't like being cooped up in the house for too long. But I guess, you know, the whole thing, like I said, is a lot more grey than just black and white between the different personality types. I don't know, Liz, do you share that view?
Yeah, I think it is the proper kind of Corona coaster thing, isn't it, from an emotional point of view? And you know, talking to lots of my colleagues. And talking to lots of my colleagues with lots of different personality types, actually, you can see it kind of coming in waves. So they'll be, okay, I'm okay, all is good, I'm well. And then they'll be like, oh God, this is relentless. You know, I could really do with seeing some people other than my family, as much as we love them. You know, you need to kind of see other people to as part of we're social creatures, aren't we? We're kind of tribal, we're social creatures. We need that interaction. Yeah. So, but I think for me, it's kind of almost that wave effect where people are okay, and then they'll have a bit of a dip, and then they're okay again. But it all is a bit relentless right now. We've also had some great support because we've got an amazing business coach. I don't know if Simon wants to tell you a bit more about Catherine, who's done some fabulous sessions for us about coping with the whole of the lockdown situation and how to be resourceful and how to look after ourselves. And I think that's really helped lots of people in the business. Simon, do you want to sort of, if it's okay with Mark and Gethin?
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, so we've been working actually with an external performance coach who comes from a sports team GB sports background. So really interesting really interesting character, Catherine Bond, who so not only has worked in elite sport, but is also a qualified psychologist. So we've really lent into help and expertise. Originally, before COVID, this was all around performance coaching and recognizing the difference between, true performance and results.
Catherine's not the one that coined the phrase for the British rowers. Does it make the boat go faster? It's not the same.
No.
In Ben Hunt Davis. But one of my favourite sayings as well, Geth. We've had Ben Hunt Davis present to the team once before, and it's something that really sticks with you. That does it make the boat go faster? But yeah, I think to what Liz was talking about there is just helping people adapt to isolation, remote working, balancing family life, and dealing with change and how to cope psychologically and practically about the things that you need to do. And a lot of it is about recognizing the things in your control, thinking about self-care, and that well-being aspect and the importance of mental health and being very conscious about the choices we make is something that's always been front of mind for us as an organization. And don't want to come across on this as blowing our own trumpets either, because I think that there have been a number of people in our business that have absolutely struggled with mental health and well-being, and regardless of the level of intent and support that we've put in place, of course, like everywhere, people do go under from time to time, and our place is no different. But it's been invaluable having sort of an external perspective looking in and saying, look, actually, let me try and help you with some of these things because you guys are in it, and it's been hugely valuable for us having that expertise available.
Fantastic. Okay, that's really interesting, and probably it actually overlaps quite a lot with how we think and approach things. Perhaps not at the scale that you're going at, but just changing tack slightly with the next question. The question is all about how do you drive value from data. So we're a data organization. We want to know how you guys drive value. Now I know you might do a lot of this for your customers as well. So you can perhaps answer it from either a customer perspective or how perhaps FSP use their data and tech to drive value. I'm assuming I'm making an assumption based off the conversations that we've had that you're in or using cloud technology to some degree. Do you use data? Do you do the analytics piece? You're looking at predictions and all that kind of stuff. For your business, like see lots of nodding. So I'll go to Simon first, or is it Liz's turn? I can't remember whose turn it is to go first. I'll go to Simon
first.
Yeah.
I was going to say, can you go to Liz, because this is a bit of a hard question. But when Liz said she wasn't technical, I'm not technical either. But I'll speak a little bit more holistically, I guess, about it. In the the journey of recognizing data as an asset and thinking about what are those building blocks and what's the journey for us about building a maturity curve and thinking about data as an asset and how we think about current state, future state, and then ultimately thinking about what are we doing with employee data, what are we doing with customer data, how are we capturing that. And there are a series of things that we've done to increase our maturity, even during the COVID period, because we've had to be more resilient in that way. In terms of the cloud piece, 90%, probably 95% of our business is running in the cloud. We're obviously aiming to be great advocates for Microsoft platform based on what we do. So we do a lot in 365 and Dynamics. We've also developed our own IP product, Pulse 360, which is much more focused around employee data and analytics and feedback. So ultimately being able to look at ways of how our employee base is feeling from a sentiment point of view, asking questions, capturing data, and looking at shifts over time, I guess. Where it gets really interesting when we start to build this bank of data, of course, is then thinking about the AI technologies that will ultimately be really helpful for us, and what trends will look like. At the moment, we can do internally in our business, we can do some basic level of data analytics, but I think where it gets really interesting is when we've got, the volumes of data that we can really start to predict, what the future might look like. And that's a really exciting place for us to be internally. And also, I suppose we've seen a massive upturn about customers consulting with us about looking at, how they think about data, how they think about the architecture, how they start to think about data for a competitive advantage and as a really integral part of their transformation journey. I know Liz in particular, who works very closely with one of our reputable retailers, very reputable British retailers, and I think has sort of been on that journey as well with some of the consulting work that you and the team have done.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. So I'm always going to think about data from a HR perspective, right? Because that's my space, I guess. And yeah, Simon's right. From a consulting point of view, for me, it's always going to be the so what question. It's great gathering loads of data. So what? What are you going to do with it? How is it going to drive your decision making? How is it going to drive your business performance? And if I come back to the kind of employee type data, and we've done some stuff in change, but outside the tech as well, if that makes sense. So because of the skills we've got across the change team, and we've been introduced and had conversations about kind of the more the HR, the people space, and especially with Pulse 360. And I think the bit for me is you gather the stuff, right? This is my non-tech way of describing it. You gather your data, you get your information. So what are you going to do with it? So a proper piece of analysis needs to be done, and then you need to start thinking about and what difference it's going to make. For example, what we do in our people space. So I'm quite interested in the HR AI type information that is starting to grow.
So Liz, would that be like there's lots of good examples out there, but a very large IT organization make predictions on churn of employees. Would something that would be of interest? Obviously, there's obviously ethical lines in all of this as well.
Absolutely.
But I believe these guys, they do it to help their retention, so they can try and retain someone before they want to leave. And you see on all, you look at LinkedIn, if your employee's already handed in their notice, it's too late to keep them. They've already made that decision. So, would that be the type of thing you'd be interested in?
Yeah, absolutely. So what are the markers? Where are the flags being raised where somebody is a flight risk, basically? So if you think about it from a bigger picture perspective, then you will always need a level of churn, in your organization to keep it fresh and innovative. And that's okay. What you don't want is big numbers, big turnover. And what you want to be able to do is minimize your flight risk, especially in key posts, for example. But for me, it's about that. Why is it that somebody wants to leave? So it's understanding what it is. This is something that you're doing as an organization that you need to look at, you need to think about. So, and how then does that information impact on your people piece? It could be the other end of the spectrum. It could be on the recruitment side as well. So if you are looking at the diversity of your organization, and we all know, we all know the value that diversity will bring to an organization. So why are you not attracting particular candidates into your business? So you need to be looking at the data around that, for example. And I think, also it's about, again, it's not from a HR point of view, it's about not being afraid of it. Using it to the benefit of the business, but fundamentally to the benefit of your employees. So it's not, it is partly commercial, but it's bigger than that as well for me. So creating that great place to work, supporting your customers to create great places to work as well, and using that data in a very sensitive, like you said, the ethics are really, really important here. And that's the bit that scares people and worries people, and rightly so, because if you get it wrong, you get it monumentally wrong.
It's like the Cambridge scandal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to name one.
Yeah, absolutely. But it can also be really informative when used in the right way and help you create great places to work. So I think that's important.
Just a quick follow-up question on that. It's about lead and lag, basically, because HR is not my space at all, right? So, but I'm genuinely interested in this topic because it's it's people basically, and that's a lot of what we're about. You can visualize the lag indicators, can't you? The recruitment exit interviews and all that stuff. And I'm going to just put aside all the ethical stuff for now. But where are you guys on that sort of lead and lag? Type of journey.
Yeah, it was actually going to be a point I was just going to chip in there with Mark, because it's exactly that. The lag indicators are all the things you've just described. Basically, that they're fed up, or they're going to leave, or they're going to be a negative voice in the organisation. But the lead indicators will be things like, how do they trust in the organisation? How do they feel about the leadership? How do they feel about their learning opportunity in the organisation? Do they have clarity over the job? Do they feel connected to the business's purpose? There are a whole wide range of aspects that constitute, I suppose, the building blocks for a fulfilled, happy employee. I'm not a big fan of the term, how happy are you at work? So I'm not sure it's all about happiness. I think it's also about fulfillment and purpose. But if we think about it in a sort of net promoter score, NPS type sense, and we go back to the piece about data, what we're all the time trying to capture is, what are the ingredients of a returning, happy, fulfilled customer? And what are the ingredients of a happy, fulfilled employee? And of course, the common thing that, not rocket science, but the common thing is that between the employee and the customer is that they will trust in the organisation. And what you're really doing is then looking at those leading indicators that constitute trust. And what we do is we try and ask leading questions. So we ask a question a week, basically, via our platform. It takes 30 seconds for our employees to complete. We don't do that frequently with our customers. I think it would drive them insane. But 30 seconds a week isn't too bad. But what we try and do is ask leading indicators of our employees about, how do you feel about these topics? And of course, during COVID, we pivoted that, because what we'd be asking is sort of fairly specific questions, much more around well-being and much more around the conditions that and the platforms that they've got to work. So, for example, basic stuff. If somebody's working from the bedroom and they've not got a suitable office environment, that's a big issue if they're going to be like that for months on end. Very obvious stuff. But what we're really then doing is capturing all the leading indicators that matter along the way. So I think it's a really interesting point there, Mark, about the difference between leading and lag when you're trying to capture data, because it's no point, just looking at the lag.
And we'll move on, if I may, back to Gethin. But just to close that off, it's the classic thing, isn't it? Where this is what I think, listening to you both, where we've probably years, all of us who've worked for big organisations will have had the annual, employee survey and so on and so forth. And we all know that, some people answer it honestly and some people don't, and blah blah blah. But it's you want to gather that stuff along the way, don't you? Almost as just part and parcel of what's going on, so that people don't think about the answer too much, and they just give that to you. I think that's brilliant, that weekly question. I think it's a really fantastic tip for any organisation, frankly.
Yeah.
Sorry, Liz, go on.
No, I absolutely agree with what you're saying, Mark, because as soon as your annual survey is at a point in time, what you want is that continual reflection and that pulse taking all the way through, because situations, the playing field changes, doesn't it, on a week by week, month by month basis. And an organisation changes so much over a 12-month period, as do the individuals within that organisation. But by taking those frequent pulse points, where you're not sitting down asking your team 50 questions and 10 questions and then really fed up with it, actually, and they'll just put anything down without kind of, filling it as you would like them to fill it, then it's not overwhelming, it's not overbearing. And then you can immediately do, and I'll always come back to this when it comes to employee engagement, is you said we did. So whenever you ask a question, you are then having to fulfill or deal with the answer to that question.
Yeah.
So if you set the expectation by asking employees what they think and what they feel, you need to then go and address it. You can't forget about it and go, oh yeah, okay, we'll come back to it in 6 months' time. You have to do that. You said this. And as a result of that, this is a really interesting area for us. We are going to do X, Y, and Z. And you start that dialogue, you start that communication.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So right. Technically, it's Mark's question next, right? But we've got 3 questions left. 2 of them are funish questions, and one is all about digital transformation and who should drive it. I'm going to ask that one now because I think it's quite a closed question. Should be a pretty simple answer. Most people answer this in a sentence. So, given the fact you deliver on or help customers deliver digital transformation, who do you think should be driving an organisation's adoption of that digital change?
In the short answer, everybody.
Everybody. So people, yeah?
Yeah, people, absolutely. Everybody across the business. Everybody has a role to play. Your senior leadership team need to be talking about the why from the strategic and the vision point of view. So why are we doing this? What difference is it going to make to us? It then needs to be driven through the organisation by the management teams and the management structures, because various models and change information, theory will tell you that employees do tend to listen more to their line managers than what they listen to the executive team, the senior leadership team. So those managers need to be brought into that vision and that strategy and approach. And then, it's not. With my IT colleagues in the room, in the virtual room, the minute you brand something an IT project, right, half the organisation switches off.
Yeah.
And they go, it's not my problem, it's not for me to worry about. It's an IT project, and it's not. This is about an organisational change project, and you focus it on the organisational change piece, and you'll land it much better than you badge it as an IT project.
I think that's fair. Thank you, Liz. That's great. Simon, do you have anything to add to Liz's answer on that?
Similar answer. I think it's I'm a big believer of collective and collaborative leadership. So I think it's a coming together of senior leaders, and bearing in mind, what does digital transformation mean? Well, the digital is the information and the comms tech. Transformation is taking the organisation in a new and positive direction to drive fundamental change. And so, a lot of our ways in are through forward-thinking, modern CIOs or CDOs, great, but it also needs top-down, cross involvement from lots of different people.
Cool. Thank you. I don't have any more questions. I wanted to get that in because it was kind of related to the last question, and then we go on to the fun bits to finish up with. I'll pass to Mark.
Well, yeah, there's definitely a fun bit with the question you're going to ask. I don't know whether mine is fun or not. What advice would either of you give to your younger selves or anyone starting out on their careers, either in the IT industry or the wider industry?
Yeah. So okay. I have to think about this really. Actually, I think it's a great question. So if you'd asked me, said to me 5 years ago, you'll be working in tech, and I would have gone, nope, that's never going to happen. So I think it's never say never for a start. I think the only, things like the only person holding you back is you. Nobody else is going to do it. Be master of your own destiny. Take opportunities that are presented to you. You won't make a wrong decision. You'll learn from everything that you do. I think actually also things like be generous with your time for other people, value others for their experience, what they can bring, again, from the diversity point of view. Every day is a learning day. I know that's a bit cheesy, but it absolutely is. What you can, by engaging, listening, working with other people, it brings so much value to what you do. And I think, what I've been able to do is use the transferable skills that I've got. So I think, saying I'm only going to work in one sector or I'm only going to work in one sort of role is just closes down so many potential opportunities for you as an individual. So like I say, never say never, and use the skills you've got and focus on the skills that you've got and develop and how you can use them in new environments. So yeah, but it was a great question. Thank you.
Simon.
Yeah, probably. I mean, the obvious thing is, if I was, advising my younger self, the first thing is there's no substitute for really applying yourself and working hard. That's the first thing. Second thing, as an insight, is much more around. There's a lot of power and enjoyment of living your values and being a good human being, and sometimes. I think in business in particular, it depends in what field you work, but being a good human and being kind isn't a substitute for being ambitious. You can do both. So I think you can be successful. You know, if you work in a commercial business or if you work in a not-for-profit, you can drive whatever success means for you and still be a good human that's acting in a wholesome and sustainable way. And that's the thing that I think is the most important, because otherwise you end up just striving for a lag outcome that you might not actually enjoy 10, 20 years down the line. So when you're living your values, the advice is pick an organisation where you can actually live those values. And that's really, really important, is that values match between wherever you choose to develop your career with actually being true to yourself.
Yeah, and I think sorry, just to throw something else in. So I am, in probably the last third of my career. God, that might sound terrible. And also, I've gone into a tech role later in life, because I guess most people do that early on because that's a route they've chosen at an early age. And I'm really mindful about how few women there are in tech, to be perfectly honest. So organisationally, our balance is probably 40% female, which is more than double what the industry average is. And we will continue to drive that. And I say I've talked about diversity once or twice already. And that diversity element is really, really important, because it brings so much added value to the sector around creativity, innovation, different ways of thinking, etc. So I think, I'm really proud from that point of view that we are sort of addressing some of those challenges, organisationally. And I do some work. I'm an enterprise advisor. I volunteer as an enterprise advisor. So I work with a school, a secondary school in Gloucestershire, and we talk about, as a careers service, talk about women in STEM subjects. And one of my other colleagues does some work with a school in Reading, where she's working with female students, pupils around careers in tech. And I think all that kind of stuff is really important. So, advice would also be, especially to women in the sector, is, go for it. Just do it. And let's get this balance a bit better than what it currently is.
I'm going to quote you on that, Liz, because we've done a little bit with sort of women in tech, and Sabrina got us involved with it's like a business networking thing. It was, but we ended up sponsoring the I think it was a Woman in Tech award that they had at the business conference. Obviously, there was 5 or 6 really good sort of final candidates. That was a couple of years back, and it opened my eyes to me, because I always remember when Caris was born, so we're going back 10 years now, it just wasn't, even that short a time ago, it just wasn't the career a woman would go into. And I was like, well, that's not right. She shouldn't be, just because she's a girl, or not just because she is, because she's a girl doesn't mean that she shouldn't be able to have any career that she wants. And so I always felt a little bit sort of passionate about that. And we I run a conference called Data Weekend, and not to just nick your point, but it's a really good thing. And we've been striving to get a sort of 50-50 balance in speakers, in the speakers, and that's been really tough to do. We haven't got to 50%, but we're not far away in our endeavor. So it is an area I think everyone needs to pull together in and make sure we get there. But I'm going to quote that's going to be I think that's going to be one of my selling points of this webinar.
Sorry. Excellent. No, that's great. That's great. Sorry. Yeah, and again, I guess it's great to have the recognition. So we've won Great Places to Work for Women, and that's really important to us as an organisation. And I know it's really important to my female colleagues. Is it right to say currently, right now, I've got an all-female team? Is that okay? Yeah. So yeah, all the change team, apart from David, who's our business enablement sort of head of service and does less sort of change stuff now. It's an all-female team right now.
You need a bit more diversity in your team, Liz.
I definitely need a bit more diversity, and I'm working on it, Simon.
Right.
That's a work in progress.
We're all laughing. Come on and get let's ask the.
Okay. So the last one to finish up then, right? Can you both tell us a fun fact about yourselves that perhaps nobody else knows about you? I'll go to Simon first, and we'll finish with Liz.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm a very boring person, so the fun fact isn't that fun. But I'll tell you a quick true story. So it's completely irrelevant to this podcast, but hey, here we go. Well, my wife and I have got 4 daughters, so in our 40s, 4 teenage girls. And on a Monday, I'm just setting the scene. This is the scene. And on a Monday evening after work, I get home after a long day in Reading, and my wife presents me with a positive pregnancy test, and I'm thinking, oh no, which one of them is? They're too young, I'm concerned about this. And I spent, some moments in shock, wondering which one it's going to be. And she turned around to me and said, are you for real? It's us, not them. And with that, we ended up with identical twin boys. So
Wow.
My identical twin boys, having those in my 40s. So now I'm now a 47-year-old with 2 4-year-old boys, and collectively we've got 4 girls that some are early 20s. So running a business and having twins is enough for me. I've got no other time.
Simon, I've got to ask, what car do you drive?
Yeah, well, it's not big enough. It's a bus.
Fantastic. And same to you, Liz.
Okay, yeah. So a bit different one for me, I guess. So I am related to the first Welshman to win an Oscar.
Wow.
So yeah, it was my grandfather's cousin, who my mum refers to as Uncle Reg. So my grandfather and he had a pretty close relationship. My grandfather grew up in a pub, hence the close relationship probably with his cousin. Say no more. But yeah, so Uncle Reg was Ray Milland, who was a Hollywood actor, and he got an Oscar for The Lost Weekend. But he was also in films like Dial M for Murder, Love Story, played opposite John Wayne, etc. So yeah, that's my kind of fact stroke claim to fame.
Wow.
I'm not even guessing you that. There we go.
No.
We definitely haven't had that before, Liz.
There we go.
All I've got to say to you, Simon, is go and find the podcast we did with Ben Kite. Have we released that one yet?
Yeah, that's out now. Yeah, that's out now.
And skip through the first 40 odd minutes of it by all means, right? And just have a listen to his brand new car bit, and you'll find some ground there.
Fantastic, guys, fantastic. Well, that brings us to the end. We've got no further questions. Simon and Liz from FSB, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your insights. It's been really, really informative.
It's
Thank you both.
Thank you so much for inviting us on and for putting up with us for this morning.
Well, it's fun.
Yeah.
It was fun.